What's happening, everybody? Welcome to another episode here, the Side Guys Football Forum. I'm one of your co-hosts, Storm of the Side, joined as always by my good friend, my good buddy, the other half of this, I guess, is Tad the Side. And Tad, heading into week 5 here. It's a very big week for my Niners. Niners and Cowboys on Sunday night prime time. I'm pretty sure you're hearing nothing but a lot of talk about how big this game is, or just Niners are not standing a chance against the Cowboys. I don't know what's going on Dallas radio, but I'm pretty sure it's just flooded with the airwaves are flooded with just talk of this game. I'm pretty sure it's just, yeah.
Okay, couple things. First off, the airways are flooding. What are you, Walter Cronkite? Relax.
It makes sense, though. It makes sense.
Hey, did you also know that men can now fly? Jesus, man, we're not in the 1960s anymore. Second off, what in God's name makes you think that I am listening to Dallas radio? That is a toxic sludge of sports takes that I'm avoiding with every fiber of my being. Are you kidding me? No, Micah Parsons is not the next coming of Reggie White. Would you relax, people?
Yeah, I understand that you would.
Dallas Sports Talk Radio. Do you think I'm insane?
You mentioned you've listened to it in the past before, so I just thought maybe this week, maybe they say something interesting.
This of all weeks is what I say away.
No, that's fair. That's fair. But yeah, it's a very important game for both franchises this week because it's sort of depending on how the rest of the season Tad plays out, this could be one of those tiebreaker games that's decides who wins a higher seed versus a lower seed. So this is a very important game for my Niners. The Colts are looking to have a very important game this week as well. They play the Titans for the first time this season. Titans have been they've looked very good at times. They've also looked very bad at times. But honestly, you can say the same thing about your Colts. It's just you're sort of seeing the dichotomy of the team every single week. So I'm curious to see what's going to happen in this divisional match, where the Titans defense is going to show up, where the Colts defense is going to show up. Jonathan Taylor is going to be active for this game. So I'm going to be interesting to see. He's not going to play?
No.
Okay.
No.
Regardless, Zach Moss has been looking good in the backfield as well. So even if Jonathan Taylor doesn't play, maybe they'll get that going. Obviously, Anthony Richardson has been healthy. They've obviously taken less of the load for him running the ball, so he's looked that much better. Almost led that comeback last week against the Rams. I was crossing my fingers. I thought
why would you bring that up? Why would you bring that up? I'm in a good mood. I'm in a good mood to start the episode, and then you bring that up. Why would you do that to me?
Well, I'm just saying that there's a lot of optimism surrounding the young man, and I think he could do something similar this week too in a divisional game that they sort of need these wins to stack within the division. So, yeah,
you would have won the Super Bowl if Brock Purdy never got hurt. How does that feel?
Yeah,
it's not so much fun when it happens to you, is it? Also, just try to steal my headphones, so apologies for that.
But yeah, so I'm liking this week here in week 5. We got some very good games on the slate for us for sure. And I think more importantly, Tad, we brought this up in our waiver wire episode. It's very critical that you set your start and sit decisions because we have 4 teams on a bye week. Just to repeat those teams, we had the Cleveland Browns, we had the Los Angeles Chargers, we had the Seattle Seahawks, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So there's a lot of key pieces, I should say, on those respective teams that could be.
You've been watching Captain Marvel or something?
Kree, yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're coming down from interplanetary.
I know we're about a month away, buddy. We're almost there.
Yeah, we're getting close. We're getting close there. But just so lots of key factors that could be part of your starting roster that you may need to make some adjustments for, like whether you have Justin Herbert, whether you have Chris Godwin, whether you have Kenneth Walker III. Any of those guys in your starting roster, they're not playing this week. So make sure you're making those adjustments this week here in week 5.
And if we're sticking with our schedule, this episode should be dropping Saturday morning. I'm warning all of you guys right now because I've made this mistake so many times. We have another London game, people. Do not forget those 8:30 lineup setups. I'm kind of bouncing between another receiver and Christian Kirk right now. I need to make that decision by Saturday night because 8:30, at least Central Time, 8:30 Central. Oh my God, they kick off at 6:30 your time. That just occurred to me.
It's true.
That is
6:30 a.m.
ridiculous.
Yeah, but it's the Bills and the Jaguars. Like, I mean, it's an exciting game, but if I sleep through it, I'm not going to be upset about it.
But bottom line being, if you have any fantasy players, make sure your lineup is set by Saturday night.
Very true.
Turn back that alarm a little bit.
Exactly. We have lots of international games happening right now as well. So, yeah, exactly like Tad said, make sure you're checking your rosters a little bit earlier because, yeah, we have those early games happening on Sundays for the next handful of weeks here as Tad. So let's get into our starts and decisions here for week 5. Like we talked about, we need to make sure we're accounting for those bye weeks. We need to make sure we're accounting for that London game. But just, yeah, also just, some bad matchups out there. So, I mean, Tad, at the quarterback position, let's start there. Do you have a start or a sit for me here in week 5?
We're going to double dip this week, my friend. Normally we try to avoid this, but it's too good to avoid, and that is Josh Dobbs. I am saying he is a start this week, especially because, like you said, I am frustrated, by the way, is because I have a guy that had a player who remind me of the teams on the bye week. It's the
we got the Cleveland Browns, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Los Angeles Chargers, and Seattle Seahawks.
Okay, never mind then, because no, this was last week I was trying this. Okay. Where last week the first couple teams were on bye and I kept trying to trade him Deshaun Watson. Oh, you know what? It was funny. So pre-show I was asking him, I was like, you had him as a start, right? And Amir was like, no, I don't know where you're getting that from. This I just remember live on air. This is what's happening is a certain member of the league was like, no, I'm good with starting Josh Dobbs. I'm like, you are good starting Josh Dobbs over this Deshaun Watson trade I'm trying to give you. He's like, yeah, I'm good. I'm like, all right, fine, have fun. What ends up happening? Josh Dobbs ends up scoring 22 fantasy points against the Niners. I was just sitting there like, well, shit. Because like that was just like, yeah, he made the right gamble. But I think at this point, it's not even a gamble anymore. I think that Josh Dobbs is a fairly reliable, I won't say starter, but he's a fairly reliable streamer, especially depending on the matchup. So Amir, I'm sure you'll get this right, but let's play our favorite game. Over under 2 interceptions that Josh Dobbs has thrown this year.
Under.
Okay, how many interceptions has he thrown this year?
I think it's 0.
He's thrown 0 interceptions this year.
Yeah.
How is that possible?
The dude has, if you're careful with the football, that I mean, it's very possible.
It's crazy.
I mean, but yeah.
And here's the other crazy thing is like, it's not just he's careful with the football through the air. He's careful with the football on the ground too. He has not had a single turnover since week 1 when he fumbled the ball twice. And by the way, I'm like 90% sure if memory serves, he recovered one of those fumbles. But
seems right, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I remember watching that. But point being is this guy's careful with the football. So even in games like last week where I'm not gonna say it was a blowout. It wasn't a blowout. It never really felt like the Cardinals were gonna win that. But it doesn't matter for fantasy players. It's like since he avoids those turnovers, his fantasy outlook is almost always somewhat like his floor is somewhat positive. His ceiling is he scores you 22 freaking points against one of the best defenses in the league. So I think that going against this, this defense that is inconsistent, let's say that. I think that's fair to explain with the Bengals. So for those who don't know, the Cards play the Bengals.
The whole team.
Inconsistent.
It's just, I don't know what to expect from this team in a given week.
Yeah. So I think that going into this game, are the Cardinals going to win it? I don't know. To be perfectly honest, I don't know. If you were asking me to like place the bet, I would say pick them. To be totally, that shows you how far the Bengals have fallen. But I think that fantasy-wise, the Bengals are the 13th ranked pass defense, and when it comes to fantasy, I think that Josh Dobbs is. If you're struggling to find, a starter this week, if Deshaun Watson is your only, starting quarterback, which he was before I traded for Patrick Mahomes, I think that Josh Dobbs is like your top end streamer right now. So I'm saying if you are like kind of questioning, should I start Josh Dobbs? Should I not? If you're asking that question, chances are you probably should.
No, it's exactly a great reason to start him this week is because that's the reason why I suggested you pick him off the waiver wires because he's been so consistent in scoring over 20 fantasy points in majority of the games that he's played this season in 4 weeks of action. And it's exactly like it laid out where it's like he's not turning the ball over. He's making start decisions with the football. And yes, exactly like it laid out. Arizona was not going to beat San Francisco in that game. But what happened is that San Francisco got very comfortable. So then in the second half of the game,
that could be your guys' downfall, by the way. That's like the second time you've done that this year.
And I think it could be as something that they need to keep aware of as the season goes along. But this is where it benefits, exactly like I said, fantasy players, where it's like, okay, the defense
Mhm.
started to let up. They're giving up a lot of those underneath routes, a lot of these pass completions. It builds up a rhythm, and then they eventually were able to move down the field. So I mean, that's exactly what you want in fantasy players. So it's like, doesn't matter where your team is, if they can get some of those garbage time points, which me and Tad are huge fans of. That's where he can sort of see those benefits. So yeah, if he's not forcing turnovers, he's able to sort of be in these situations where he could generate a lot of points for you. And he's also a runner with the football too. So he's getting those rushing
I
yards,
was
possibly running for a touchdown as well. So I mean, yeah, this is a very excellent start this week. And like I said in the waiver wire episode, maybe the next couple weeks, because yeah, the bye weeks are starting now. So yeah, he could be a good spot starter going forward too.
I was just about to say that is because the Cardinals are an annoying team in the way they're always kind of in it. Because I mean, if a team's getting blown out, like defenses will start like experimenting, right? Let's keep blitzing them. Let's see what happens. Blah blah blah. But if they're kind of in it, so like the 20, I think I have the score right. But like in the third quarter, it was 23-16.
Around there, yeah.
Around that, something like that. Well, that's where like all of a sudden the Niners just like throw everyone back there and just had the 4 3-man rush. And then, like you said, Josh Dobbs is enough of a runner. Well, that's an extra point right there because then he can easily just rush for a first down right there because the Niners are like, we'll let you score here, but we're not going to let you like hit us with a bomb of a pass here. So I think that Josh Dobbs, especially moving forward, assuming he doesn't get hurt, this dude, he may be, and this sounds weird too because he's looking legit. He may be this year's Baker Mayfield. He may have just played himself into his starting role with a different team next year.
Very, very possible
How is
for
Baker
sure.
Mayfield good?
I don't know. He's just working in that offense for some reason.
This is such a weird fucking season.
It's a weird season for sure. And I'm going to get to my sit here. And Tad, you actually were just bringing up this team. I brought this team to start the episode, the San Francisco 49ers. I'm going to say sit Brock Purdy. And like I talked about,
Oh, you
this
you
game is
traitor.
this is a big game for both teams. And I think both teams boast very strong defenses. And as much as I like Brock Purdy and the way he's been playing through the first 4 weeks of the season, you gotta look at the competition, and it hasn't been that strong. Like, I mean, they played the Steelers that a lot of people maybe expected they would have been good. They absolutely blew them out that game. Then they played the New York Giants, I think 2 weeks ago. That was not exactly a very difficult game either. Then they played the Arizona Cardinals most recently right now. And so that wasn't exactly the toughest game either. So, I mean, just through the first 4 weeks of action, they haven't had the stiffest competition where it makes you wonder, like, okay, has Brock Purdy really been tested? This is the week where he's going to be tested. And Tad, if you look at last year when he played in the playoff game against the Dallas Cowboys, he played well, but I don't think for fantasy purposes, these are numbers that you want. He went 19 for 29, 214 passing yards, and no passing touchdowns. So, I mean, in the game, he looked very strong. I think there were a few times where he made some bad decisions in the game as well, but just overall, in the game, he obviously led the Niners to a victory. But as a fantasy quarterback, if I'm getting those numbers for my quarterback, those are not exactly starting numbers that I want. And so I sort of expect that, the Cowboys are going to bring their A game, obviously. Niners are going to bring their A game. It's going to be a very defensive heavy battle that I just don't think the offenses are going to generate much on either side. So it's like, yeah, I'm not a huge fan of either offenses. But yeah, in this case, as good as Brock Purdy has been the past couple of weeks, I think this week he has to be a sit.
I agree. Like I said, I just pulled off a trade for Patrick Mahomes just a couple days ago, and a big part of that trade was Brock Purdy. I was almost shocked that I was able to pull off that trade because it was a definite sell high on Purdy. Because while he is a viable, I would put him in the same tier as Josh Dobbs. Of like he's a viable fantasy streamer depending on the option. Because what's concerned me the most with Purdy is the amount of completions he's had so far this season, which is pretty consistently hovering around 20 completions. A good amount, don't get me wrong, but it just seems like they're kind of he's just kind of being like the game manager. And maybe that's a little too harsh. I'm sure I'm about to get a bunch of 49ers fans jumping down my throat for saying that. But I go back to, I think, God, let me look at the schedule real quick. It was I think it was the Rams game where I saw this, where I was really like, okay, I don't know if you're like the franchise quarterback, but you can get the job done. Where it was the Rams game where he had two instances where there were wide open touchdowns and he overthrew both.
Yeah, that was a Rams game.
Was that okay? Mm-hmm. And that was the moment where I was like, okay, and it's fine, right? He's a second-year player. He's not going to be perfect. I'm not expecting that. But I do think just because of how good this team is, those expectations for him, and especially when it comes to fantasy football, are so much higher than they should be, that I agree with you. I think the competition, I'm not going to call it soft, but has been lesser than what he's about to face on Sunday night. And that is a big, big reason why I trade him away, because your schedule is about to get a lot tougher. And while I think that he is still going to lead you guys to a winning record and possibly an NFC championship, hopefully now to a Super Bowl, I do have my doubts on his fantasy relevancy moving forward on a consistent basis. So I'm with you. I think that's a very, very smart sit. And I traded him for Patrick Mahomes.
But yeah, so I think the Niners schedule does get a lot tougher as we sort of move along through the next couple of weeks as well. But just, I think this week, 100%, he needs to be on your bench. I don't think he's going to generate that many points for you. So, Tal, let's get to the running back position here. Do you got a start or sit for me here in week 5?
I've got to start for you.
Okay.
Look, people, it's been hard to watch. I am right there with you on my couch being like, why does this team not get flexed out of all these primetime games? But unfortunately, they're not going to be.
No.
Because it's a little too hard. As Cap is attacking my feet because apparently he's a Jets fan.
He believes in Zach Wilson. I don't
know. You know, that he does have this brain this size of a small walnut, so that would explain why. I'm not saying Zach Wilson. Do not trust Zach Wilson. Don't do that.
Well, we're talking about running backs here, so I think I have an idea of where you're going here, but
I'm telling you guys, I know it's been hard ever since week 1, but trust Breece Hall. Breece Hall is a guy to start.
Okay.
Whoa. Wait, you don't trust him?
I think it's an obvious trust. Like, I think that's the biggest thing that we were talking about in the offseason. The biggest thing they were talking about in the offseason, Tad, was that the reason that the Jets signed Dalvin Cook was they weren't sure about Breece Hall's status to begin the season. So he was on a snap count to start the season. And then what has come out as surfaced earlier this week, Robert Saleh has said the pitch count is over. Breece Hall is 100% ready to go. So I think at this point now, it's safe to trust Breece Hall going forward. He's one of those horses that you start every single week. So it's like, I know what you want to say about the Jets offense, but I think just this is a guy that's just like automatically you're starting him. So it's just like for you to pick him as a start this week is just, I feel it's a little obvious, but like that's just
okay. That's just all right. Obvious. All right, Captain Obvious. How about that? Let me show you this. Okay. Week 2 at Dallas, 0.9 points. Week 3 in New England, 3.2 points. Week 4 at Kansas City, 8.4 points. You are still saying that as a confident start.
He was on a pitch count during those games.
Oh my God.
I'm telling you. Now the fact that they're taking off the reins, it's like it's an obvious start.
That's the excuse you're going to use.
Yeah.
Is your back okay?
Totally.
Okay, good. Because you're grasping for those straws pretty far, so I'm just worried about you, overdoing it.
That was bad.
That was great.
that was not great. Good at all.
That was an A+.
I was expecting something so much better from you, setting it up with the.
That was great. You're grasping, reaching over.
No, I don't.
You're hurting your back.
That
was great. No, that was A+. Screw you.
You could have done better. I expected more from you.
Well, you know who else I expect more from is Breece Hall. How about that for a transition?
Okay, there you go. Okay, you kind of redeemed yourself there.
Oh, God. But anyway, so despite what you would say.
Okay, all right.
He's only being started in 60% of ESPN leagues. So clearly 40% of America agrees with me. I'm like Donald Trump there.
It's still also Friday, though, I will say. So it's like Saturday. It's like I think that's when you start to see the rosters getting adjusted.
No
right?
way.
Yeah.
No way.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think that Denver, I would like to say their defense, but at this point, it's not defense. It's just a slice of Swiss cheese they kind of like throw out on the field. It's like, do something. It's like that old meme of like, come on, do something. Like that's their defense. Yeah. That's their defense at this point. So I think that, Breece Hall, fine. Obvious or not, but I think Breece Hall's next breakout since week 1 is going to happen against the Denver Broncos. I don't know if the Jets are going to win. This game is going to be such a shit show. How is it possible that the Broncos play the Bears and the Jets in back-to-back weeks? Like, it's the same game. It's the same thing where I'm like, I don't know. Like, So it will be a very interesting game to watch, hopefully. But I do think that Breece Hall, and I will say this, like you said, the reins are off. I do think that this will be the first time all season that Breece Hall breaks 15 carries for the first time all season because he has yet to reach that benchmark. And I think that is severely limiting his fantasy outlook. So I like Breece Hall to have a good week. If you are on the fence about like, I don't know, the Jets offense has been pretty bad and they have, I think that this is the week where you kind of go, okay, maybe this is where they right the ship a little bit. Fine. Because you have forced my hand, I will give you yet another start because I am so generous to our listeners.
All right, let's hear it.
This one I feel a little less confident in. I'm not going to lie. Gus Edwards against the Pittsburgh Steelers.
I like this one so much
I think he is a solid. Really?
I like this one so much better.
Yeah, throw so much better.
So much better.
Yeah, throw the so in there.
Of course, I had to. Would you prefer substantially?
I prefer you just say, oh, just as good of a pick.
No, you won't get that for me.
Yeah, I know. So point being is I like Gus Edwards a lot because while his production has not quite been there, especially fantasy-wise, he's just like he's a touchdown away from being a really, really good flex play. That's the only problem. That's always the frustration with these Baltimore running backs. But Gus Edwards, who came back way quicker than I expected, he is the guy in Baltimore. He has had over 10 carries in the last 3 games. He has had around 50 yards, which is what to expect with the Lamar Jackson running back. But I think that with the Steelers defense being the 27th ranked defense in fantasy against the run, I think he's good for at least a touchdown, at least 40 or 50 yards. Kenny Pickett has no injury designation. He looked really hurt last week. I'm not really sure how good he's going to be this week. So I really think the Steelers are going to get blown out this weekend. I really do. Which means more rushing opportunities.
Exactly. And I think that sort of leads to a good transition point because my sit at the running back position, Dad, is Najee Harris on the
Pittsburgh
Steelers.
Just sit him, cut him, trade him, get him off your roster.
Yeah, Ted, I feel like I owe you something because, you were saying that this guy is just not the guy anymore. And I was like, no, I think he could possibly turn it around this year. Like, he's actually going to look better. But just, I'm horrifically wrong because he has not been looking good in this offense. I think, unfortunately, he has the talent. I think he can be a good running back, but just this offensive line is just absolute garbage dumpster fire, whatever you want to call it. Just like it's terrible. It's terrible.
But it's Charles Barkley terrible.
Charles Barkley terrible. Like it's in that realm for sure. Yeah.
It's not just the offensive line, but that is also a massive part of it. It's just, again, I know I'm like, just people are like, wow, this is original take, Tad. Blame Canada. Like, my God. Yeah. Stop running him through the guard. Like, stop running him up the middle. Stop it.
And then you know what's crazy, Tad? You know what's crazy is that we talked about this on our waiver wire episode. I said Mike Tomlin after the game last week said that was not a good performance. We need to make some changes. And then what happens later this week? He says, "Oh, we're not making any changes to our offensive personnel right now." So it's like, what sort of double talk are you sort of giving to the media and the fans out here? That just pretty much speaks to the fact that just like, this offense is not going to change at least for probably another couple of weeks. I don't know why, but just like, exactly like it laid out. Just Canada's offensive philosophy, his scheme is it's not working in this offense. 100% exactly what you said. Kenny Pickett, it looked like a more severe knee injury that he's sort of letting on. He's going to play, but just I don't know how effective he's going to be. And I think the defense of the Baltimore Ravens can sort of key in on that. And I think more effectively stop the run too. And then force Kenny Pickett. That's like, okay, if you say you're healthy, beat us then. And we're going to totally eliminate the run. They're going to stop Najee Harris. They're going to stop Jalen Ward. They're going to force Kenny Pickett to obviously play that game and force them to beat him. And if perchance they get a hit on him and Kenny Pickett is removed from that game.
They're going for that knee too.
They possibly will, but then also if they have to go with Mitchell Trubisky, I don't like Trubisky against his Ravens offense either. And defense
like Trubisky at all.
So exactly. So I think just either way, this Ravens defense is going to be able to do whatever they want against this Pittsburgh offense. And that just means that it's hard for me to trust any Steelers player this week in here, week 5. So 100%, if you have Najee Harris, put him on the bench.
If you have Najee Harris, either cut him or trade him. The current line on that game is Ravens 4.5. I think the Ravens beat them by at least 6.
Yeah, a touchdown, I think, is very fair to say. Yeah. Touchdown is very fair to say, for sure. Tad, let's move things along here. Let's get to the receiver position. You got to start, or do you got to sit for me?
I got to sit, and this is actually the most confident I felt about a sit in quite a while. Is this guy I love a lot. I think I picked him as one of my favorite fantasy sleepers going into the season, but this matchup this week is the perfect storm for just disaster if you decide. And because I'm saying all of this, he'll probably go off for about 30 points. But I'm going to say this regardless. Sit Josh Reynolds. Don't do it, because he's a very tempting start for a lot of people, because Amon-Ra St. Brown is currently listed as doubtful, but it's all but been confirmed that he will not play on Sunday, which means that Josh Reynolds, who, yes, also has a questionable tag before people start yelling at me of like, well, he's questionable too. He was a full participant in practice today on Friday, so it's looking like Josh Reynolds will suit up. Two problems with that. One, I don't think he's suited to be number one target. Two, there's a certain man who may or may not play. He has a questionable tag, even though he's not hurt. Jameson Williams is back.
Right.
So I think he will play. I think they're just questionable kind of because they're just like, if he's not like physically fit. I personally think he will. And if he does, that's just another wild card thrown in there. I don't think he will do much, but it also wouldn't shock me. And they were just like, hey, remember this guy? Like this was a big breakout party, which would kill Josh Reynolds' value. So I think that Josh Reynolds is going to get all the attention as the now number one guy. And I just frankly don't think he has a skill set to overcome that. And here's a really shocking stat while I was doing research for this episode. The Carolina Panthers had the 5th best pass defense when it comes to fantasy football. Surprisingly high. So a surprisingly good defense, or I shouldn't say defense, a surprisingly good secondary with a guy who thrives as a number 2 guy, but I have doubts about whether he can step up to be the number 1 guy. There are way too many unknowns going into this game. I don't feel confident about it. I say you can find someone better on the waiver wire. You can find someone better on your bench that is worth that type of risk. I don't think Josh Reynolds is going to eclipse over 6 points.
Wow. Okay, that's saying something, especially with Amon-Ra St. Brown possibly being out. So,
and that's the thing, though, is because Amon-Ra St. Brown is out. Because I fell for the same trap yesterday, where I saw the news of like, oh, he's probably not going to play, and I'm like, let's go for Reynolds. And I started doing research. I'm like, ooh, it's like, actually probably not. And another big part of that is, like I said, that Carolina pass defense is surprisingly good. So I think that I actually think this game is going to be a little closer than people think. I think the Lions are still going to win, but I think they're going to be leaning pretty heavily, because this is the problem with Carolina is they have the 5th best pass defense, but they have the 29th ranked run defense. And we saw it last week. What do the Lions now apparently do really, really well is they run the ball. So I think that this game is going to be won on the ground and not through the air. So I think that this passing offense with the Lions is, at least fantasy-wise, going to be a little underwhelming this weekend.
Interesting. So
I
do want
Jared Goff is about to throw for like 6 touchdowns.
I do want to revisit this game a little bit later in the episode here, Tab, but I'm going to go with my start at the wide receiver position, and I'm going to go with Romeo Doubs of the Green Bay Packers versus the Las Vegas.
Time. Who?
Romeo Doubs.
It's Dobbs.
Is it Dobbs?
It's Dobbs.
Okay. All right.
What
that's
do you think
my bad.
I know where are they playing? Oh yeah, I know they're playing in Vegas, but it's not dubstep.
Yeah, they are playing in the Las Vegas.
Oh, come on. That was great.
Yeah.
Just go.
So the Raiders defense has allowed 24 fantasy points per game to opposing wide receivers this season. They've also allowed 6 receiving touchdowns to receivers as well, which is tied for the second most in the NFL. Christian Watson is finally fully healthy. He is going to be in the lineup for the Green Bay Packers, but the biggest thing is that he didn't start the season fully healthy, and he wasn't in the starting lineup. So what's been happening in that meantime through the first 4 weeks of action? Jordan Love has been building a chemistry with Romeo Doubs. And the fact that it's like, through 4 weeks of action, Dobbs currently has 33 targets, which is in the top 20 of the wide receivers in the NFL. So that says something right there. And clearly, it just looks like Dobbs has just gained the trust of Jordan Love to move the ball down the field. So yes, even with Christian Watson healthy, we could see him as sort of like that deep threat, that sort of home run play, as opposed to Romeo Doubs, who's going to move the chains for the offense, and he's going to be more of that catch guy, especially in PPR leagues. That's going to be more beneficial for you, where it's like he's going to get you a lot of catches, he's going to get you a lot of yards, maybe he'll find a way to score a touchdown as well, but just I like his value a little bit more against a very bad Raiders defense. I very much like Christian Watson as well, but you're more dependent on that deep throw ability and just having the time to sort of make those throws and get those longer completions to Christian Watson, whereas like Romeo Doubs has now sort of earned the trust of Jordan Love love to sort of be that guy that's like, whenever he needs a crucial catch or a crucial conversion, he's going to be looking his way. So yeah, I like him a little bit more than Christian Watson this week, but I like both receivers because, yeah, the Raiders defense sucks.
So bad. It's so bad. The Raiders are an absolute shit show. I've been saying for a while. I think I said it even when it happened. I don't. Was our podcast going when that happened? When the whole Josh McDaniels Colts,
Not yet.
We were not starting then.
No.
Well, I was saying at the time because my friends were texting me just like, oh, that sucks for you, and I'm like, I'm happy. I never wanted McDaniels. Now I'm like, oh, thank God we avoided that one. I was like, woo, that dude sucks. He's a bad head coach. But anyway, my point being is I completely agree with you on basically every count. You use my favorite word when it comes to, and it's a word we brought up a couple weeks ago when I said pick up Romeo Doubs on waivers. That chemistry. Because even if Christian Watson comes in and they kind of utilize him as this is what I compared it to was like the Deebo Samuel to the Brandon Ayuk is even if they kind of use him as the him being Christian Watson as a Deebo Samuel, like he's our freak athlete, we'll utilize him, whatever. Brandon Ayuk and Brock Purdy have that connection that is just not quite there with Deebo and Brock. I may be wrong, maybe you'll disagree with that, but basically, I see that Romeo. I don't really see Dobbs' usage dropping as a consequence of Watson returning. So I think that Dobbs is definitely good for a touchdown on Sunday night, if not more. He's a good start, absolutely. And for the love of God, if he's still on your waiver wires, go for it.
Yeah, seriously, go get that guy for sure. So, Tad, let's move on to the tight end position here. You got a starter sit for me here in week 5.
Sorry, buddy. And I traded this guy off I traded for this man. And then literally almost instantly, I turned around and traded him off my roster because I saw this coming from a mile away. Do not start George Kittle.
Yeah, he has not been gaining a lot of targets in this offense so far through 4 weeks of action. So maybe it'll happen later this season. But yeah, as of right now, I agree with this one. I think it's safe.
And this is you right here, crazy stat. He's being, at least on ESPN, he's being started in 87% of leagues still.
And I think people
it's
are
pure
just
name value. It's pure name value.
Exactly. It's the name factor and just the fact that, he's obviously came up big for them in certain games. So it's just like you hope that's like, oh, they're playing a very crucial game here against Dallas. They may need him to get some crucial conversions here. So I think I got a good chance that he'll sort of have a rebound week. But, honestly, just the way the offense is going, they're flowing through Christian McCaffrey. Brandon Ayuk is getting a lot of the deep passes, Deebo Samuel is definitely getting involved as well a little bit here. But just, unfortunately, George Kittle has just not been getting involved. They've been keeping him in to block more often than not, which is why Christian McCaffrey had 4 touchdowns last week. So, as of right now, he is being used as a blocker. It's very similar to how people are feeling about Kyle Pitts, where it's just like he's not running enough routes. And so it's just like it limits his value. So we'll see. I think Kyle Shanahan definitely likes to take advantage of using George Kittle in different situations and using all of the players that he has in different situations. So I think there will be a time where he will start to rebound and he'll start to be good again. But for right now, sorry, Tad, I'm stealing all your talking.
I was about to say, can I give analysis on my pick eventually?
Sorry, but just I 100% agree with this. I 100% agree with this.
Holy crap. Clearly, I touched a sore spot there. Well, all right. You took a lot of my notes. But anyway, I will say this is, let's play over-under. Over-under. 3 targets he saw last week. Not catches, targets.
Last week, I feel like you're going to get me. I want to say it was exactly 3.
It was 1.
It was 1. Okay, yeah. I knew it was 3. It was 3 or under, but part of me felt like you were trying to get me on that one. So, yeah, that doesn't surprise me, though. That doesn't surprise me.
It surprised me, and I'm very glad I managed to sucker my friend, and he's actually the one person that constantly listens to this podcast. So, Jeremy, sorry, buddy. That's a trade game, man. I knew this was coming. So, he has Mark Andrews, so he's fine anyway. He doesn't.
Anybody in Tad's league, this is how he wins. Do not accept trades from him. I'm just telling you that right now.
I've already pulled off 3. I'm having a very hard time pulling off the 4th one. So, I'm good, guys. I'm good. But I just think in this is a big thing too, is the Cowboys have not allowed a single tight end they face this year to go over 10 points. So not only is it a bad, scheme fit with George Kittle right now for whatever reason, but it's also a bad matchup as well, which is when you get that double whammy, is an instant bench in my book.
Yeah, 100%. Exactly like you laid out. With Dallas' defense playing so strong, they have very good linebackers that can drop into coverage as well as just a very fearsome pass rush. So they may need George Kittle to sort of set up some chips, and then obviously he can't run his routes then as effectively. They'll be looking for other players in this offense to move the ball down the field. So, yeah, I 100% agree with this one. I think he can bounce back eventually. I think just unfortunately it's not going to be this week. It's going to take a little bit of time here for sure. So Tad, I talked about revisiting that Lions game against the Carolina Panthers. This is where I want to revisit it because my start, I mean, you sort of laid it out with the Amon-Ra St. Brown possibly being out. Most likely he'll be out. Josh Reynolds, you're sort of questioning whether he's going to be able to play. Like you said, throw in the wild card of Jameson Williams. Who's a guy that's sort of been very consistent in this offense that honestly, by my take, I did not expect it because I was not a huge fan of rookie tight ends. And the fact of me saying rookie tight ends, it sort of spells to the fact that I'm talking about Sam Laporta, the rookie out of Iowa for the Detroit Lions. And I mean, I still stand by what I said that it's hard to trust rookie tight ends, but Sam Laporta seems to be the exception to the rule.
Yeah, this one's trustworthy.
He's 100% exception to the rule because, I mean, you look at what he's doing so far, Tad. He is currently top 5 among tight ends in receptions. He is 4th in receptions. He is 5th in targets, and he is leading all tight ends in receiving yards. That is crazy.
These are not rookie tight ends. This is all tight ends.
This is all tight ends. And that's what speaks to the fact that Detroit wants to use this guy. There's a reason that he was the first tight end taken off the board. Detroit clearly had a game plan for him. They're like, we're going to take this guy. He's not only going to be a blocker, he's also going to be a receiving threat for us. And they're clearly utilizing in that sense. And he's second in the team to all those categories that I mentioned: receptions, targets, and receiving yards, only trailing Amon-Ra St. Brown, which makes sense, obviously, when you have a guy like Amon-Ra St. Brown on your team. But honestly, just this Lions offense flows through Laporta. Like, I mean, you sort of talked about it where it's like they're probably going to use the running game a lot against Carolina because they have such a terrible run defense, but they have a good pass defense. I think they're going to run a lot, and then whenever they do need to pass the ball, they're going to exactly. They're going to use Laporta to sort of move the chains a little bit once they get to the red zone. I don't doubt that he's going to be a red zone monster for them in this game too, but just clearly with the Amon-Ra St. Brown out this week, most likely. It still hasn't been confirmed yet, but if he's going to be sitting out, there's a reason that he's number 2 in all those receiving categories behind Amon-Ra St. Brown because the Lions trust him in this offense. And so if Amon-Ra St. Brown has to sit, I very much like Laporta to be a very crucial piece of this passing offense that a lot of the targets are going to go his way. He's going to get a lot of receiving yards, and I think he's definitely going to score as well. But yeah, definitely Amon-Ra St. Brown, if he sits out, I'm very much starting Laporta in every league possible.
I completely agree. This is a great start, especially because like what you say is I think they're going to try, if they were smart, what they would do is try to stretch the field on the outside because they're going to put all the attention on Josh Reynolds. And what's worst case scenario? Okay, then Laporta starts killing it. They put all the attention on him. He has a quiet quarter. Then all of a sudden they start stretching the field with Jameson Williams if he plays, or they start stretching the field with Josh Reynolds again. And then all of a sudden they're like, shit, we got to go back to Josh Reynolds. And it's just this back and forth all day. Like, I think Carolina, despite all of Detroit's injuries, they're going to have a tough game because they just don't have the personnel to cover this loaded of an offense. So I completely agree. Somebody on Detroit is going to blow up. My gamble is David Montgomery, who's an obvious start. After last week, I think Montgomery's going to have a good week. And I think there's going to be some, because I mean, just there has to be. There's going to be some Lions receiver that blows up. And I think Laporta is the safest bet to make there.
Dark horse receiver who could bake out? Marvin Jones.
Oh my God, he's still in Detroit?
He went back to Detroit. How old is he? Yeah, he's back with Detroit.
Good God.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, so I think he could have a sneaky good game with Amon-Ra St. Brown possibly sitting out there. But yeah, I'm 100% all aboard Sam Laporta this week here in week 5. Tad, let's get to our kickers and our defense. So give me your starts and sits for both of those positions here.
All right, should I go start or sit first?
Let's go with your start first.
All right, this pains me to say, how dare you, but
you asked me which one you wanted.
I know. I was hoping you were going to say sit. I was really hoping. And
I like to stay positive. I like to start.
Well, I don't.
You should have just gone with the original then.
No, shut up. Anyway, point being is the Texans defense is not bad. They're not great, but they're not bad. And here's the thing is they're only being started about 19% of leagues right now. So if you need if you're streaming a defense and you still don't quite feel great about your defense, I saw somebody starting oh God, who was it? It was like some terrible matchup where who are the Eagles playing this weekend?
The Rams.
Yeah, so I saw someone starting that. I was like, really? And it really kind of like reeked of like I just want to hold on this defense. I want to drop them, which is fair. But if you're in that situation, I think this is a pretty good defensive pickup, which is the Houston Texans going against the Atlanta Falcons. This Falcons offense, Bijan Robinson's good. No, I've abandoned that take. I've abandoned that take.
I'm glad
To
you
be
raised
fair,
the
though,
white flag on that take.
to be fair, I will say again, I'm sure plenty of more times on this podcast, I never said he was bad talent-wise. It was all about the usage.
I know, but you were very
I'm just saying.
confident that he was not going to be used. And so I was just like, I really don't know
My
what you're talking about.
I've also said this a lot on the podcast. My hate for Arthur Smith has just grown exponentially since the season started. Because like very few coaches have made me look more idiotic and whatever. The rest of that offense is terrible.
Yeah.
Drake London, fantasy-wise, is terrible. Kyle Pitts has been a fantasy graveyard. Desmond Ridder, oh my God, Amir, I don't know why all this Falcons Twitter was popping up in my feed this week, but like randomly when they, I swear to God, randomly on like, I think it was Tuesday when Arthur Smith had his press conference, he's like, no, Desmond Ridder is still our starter. Oh my Twitter feed was lighting up with like, why? Like, how dare you? I'm just like, why are all these people all of a sudden caring about Desmond Ridder? I was like, Jesus Christ. But bottom line being is Desmond Ridder is on a very short leash and for a very good reason. It is like you and I both predicted during the draft process. He looks like a good, solid NFL back. If Desmond Ridder is my backup, I'd feel pretty good.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
That dude's not a starter.
No.
So the Texans defense on the other side of that, they've forced a turnover in all but one game so far this season. They're coming off a game in which they had 3 sacks, the most since week 1 where they have 4 sacks. So while I don't think that the Texans score is going to blow you away, I think they are the very, very good definition of a safe bet that will get you anywhere from 7 to 10 points and a perfect streaming option, especially if you have a defense that is on a bye. So I like the Texans defense as a start this week, especially because they're kind of flying on the radar so far this year. And as for a sit, guys, 77% of you on ESPN are still starting this man. Give it up. I feel like a friend telling them like, just leave her alone, man. She broke up with you. It's done. I know you liked her. I know she looked attractive. I know it was tempting, but things just went wrong. And it's time just to move on. Evan McPherson is no longer a viable starting.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
The dude has gone under 10 points 3 out of the last 4 weeks. This offense, this whole Bengals offense, frankly, is just on, like house arrest. I'm like, I may not drop you, well, except for Evan McPherson. I would drop him because he's a kicker. Everybody else, and maybe even including Jamar Chase, I may not drop you, but you are on my bench until you prove that you can actually start, doing your job. And that especially goes for the kicker because it's not even one of those offenses where it's like, oh, we can get you into field goal range. They can't even get there. Poor Joe Burrow. By the way, I don't blame Joe Burrow for this at all. I don't know if you watched that Titans game. He got killed during that time. There were like 3 or 4 massive hits where I'm like, how did you not just break her? Like he's throwing and like a defense tackle would come and just lay him out. I'm like, how did you not break your elbow doing that? So like, I don't blame Joe Burrow for this at all. I completely blame this wildly underperforming offensive line. So until this offense can prove to me that they can frankly get their shit together, I'm not touching a Bengals player. If you're part of that 77% starting Evan McPherson, going like, hey, maybe this is the week. Hey, don't do that. Like, move on. There are plenty of other kickers out there. Amir, who's a kicker you can replace Evan McPherson with?
Yeah, I think it's hard to trust a kicker in any offense where you can't trust the offense. And that's exactly what's going on in Cincinnati. And we already talked about their defense as well. We're just like, I don't know what to expect from this defense either. So just overall, this whole team is just such a
one giant
mystery as far exactly. Just what is going on.
It's like if you played Red Dead Redemption 2 and you're like riding around and there's like that giant white question mark when you run into a stranger and you're like, I have no idea what's going to happen, but fuck it. Let's go for it. Like it's either you run into a cave full of wolves or you find a very nice nature photographer. It's like one of the two. And it's just,
This is very much a very similar situation with Cincinnati. So it's just like I don't know what to expect. And exactly like you said, Ted, the kicker is the position you can stream. So it's like I know having Evan McPherson in previous years was very good, I should say. But this year it's hard to trust him at all for sure. So you're talking about kickers that you could
Groot there.
No, good. So it's like great and good combination of both, I guess. Maybe that's what I was trying to go over there. But
because that's better.
Oh yeah, so much better. So you're talking about kickers that you can trust. I've already brought this guy up before. I think you brought this guy up before as well, not just in our starts episode, but also in our waiver wire episode. Jake Moody, kicker for the San Francisco 49ers. I already talked about this game being a potential low-scoring game, very defensive heavy, and I think this is going to be a situation where both kickers, so I actually like Brandon Aubrey. I brought him up as a waiver wire edition piece as well before. He's and I know you love his whole story coming into the NFL too, where it's just like, I think he could get a lot of points this week as well, because Tad, in the last two games that the Niners and Cowboys have played, both have been playoff games, they have combined for 10 combined field goals. So, I mean, that just sort of speaks to the fact that just like these teams.
That's a great set. I love this.
So it's like we talked about, like both these teams have very good defenses. So it's like they're playing very good. It's very bend, not break. So it's like they're getting into the opponent's territory. But unfortunately, that's when the defense is like, all right, you're not getting into the end zone. We'll settle for 3 if that's what we have to do. And I think the Niners have sort of put more trust into Jake Moody, because obviously we look at that preseason, we're just like, this guy is just not looking like a very good kicker.
Michael, stop focusing on the preseason.
I'm sorry,
my God.
But it's just like, that's one of the biggest concerns I had heading into the season. I was just like, we have to deal with him all season long, and then he completely put that all to rest. It was literally like a switch. He's like, all right, preseason's over. I'm going to be who I was, which is why I'm the 3rd round pick sort of thing for the San Francisco 49ers. And he's been excellent. And I think he's got that great leg as well. So if they need to get those longer field goals, if they can't get that far into Dallas's territory, he could get them some 50-plus yard field goals as well. So I very much like him to get you a good amount of points. Tad, I really think this may be a little bit of a hot take, but I think there's going to be 2 or 3 total touchdowns in this game between San Francisco and Dallas. Like, I think it's going to be very defensive heavy. Their last score last season was 19-12. So I think there's only 1 touchdown in that game. 2 on both. So 2 total. So 1 on each side.
You're throwing too much math at me. Stop it.
I know. I'm sorry. But just like, regardless, it's going to be very field goal heavy. I think they're very going to be defensive heavy as well. So I like both kickers, but for me, I'm siding with Jake Moody on this one here. Now, I'm going to get to the opposite here, Tad. So with my sit this week, I'm going to go with the Kansas City Chiefs versus the Minnesota Vikings. So while I like Dallas and San Francisco to be low scoring, I think Minnesota, Kansas City could be the higher scoring game of the week this week. And so it's like, you look at both of those offense. Minnesota has a very prolific passing attack. Kansas City, obviously, with their full strength, they're going to be very prolific as well. So I think it could be very back and forth. They're going to be trading touchdowns between both teams on offense, obviously there. So I know Kansas City's been looking really good ever since they were able to get Chris Jones back under contract starting in week 2. But I think, like I said, just Minnesota boasting a very good offense. Jordan Addison, Justin Jefferson, Kirk Cousins, obviously. They just have a very good passing attack that I think will be hard for Kansas City to slow down. So I think it's going to be very much of a track meet game. I very much like this to be high scoring. So in that case, sit both defenses. I wasn't trusting Vikings defense anyways, but I know some people were writing Kansas City's defense. But I think this week, it's a good week to sit them.
Yeah, that game's gonna be insane. It's gonna be like, what's over under on that game? Actually, I should probably look at that. But yeah, so I completely agree with everything you just said. Can we stop bringing up Jake Moody's preseason? My God,
I'm sorry, but it was one. Like I said, it was the biggest sticking point that I could sort of think about when the Niners were heading into the regular season. They're just like, what can we expect from it? It was the right side of the offensive line. I was like, what's going to happen there, and what's going to happen with our kicking game if we need to come to it? But yeah, the right side of the offensive line still has some issues. I'm worried about that long term, but the kicking issues, I'm completely relieved of that sort of issue. So he's perfectly fine.
Vikings Chiefs has the largest over under of the entire weekend at 52.5.
Yeah, I
don't blame him at all.
I like the over. I like the over.
Yeah. I bet you. I mean, I like the over because it's probably going to be like 45-13.
It could be very one-sided, but I could also see, like I said, the track meet where both teams are scoring in bunches. As well. So, Tad, we're talking about over-under here. We're talking about some bets. So I want you to really quickly give us your best bets this week here for the spread and the money line this week. What do you think are some good bets for our friends to make here, courtesy of our friends at BetOnline?
So it's like a fun, like I finally understand when your grandparents were like doing the crossword and they were like, "I found it," and you're like, "I don't. Why is this exciting to you?" And I finally have connected with that feeling because this is what happens every week where I'm like, "Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Where?" I got it. And what that is I got the unusual, unreasonable home field advantage favorite.
All right.
Why in God's name are the Raiders 2-point favorites going into Sunday Night Football?
I didn't understand this one either. Yeah, I saw this game and I was like,
It's
this seems like a
so
good pick
weird.
for sure. Yeah.
It's so weird. So I guess you could say so. By the way, it's Packers +2 and minus 108 are your odds there. So I mean I know that's basically an extra money line pick, but like come on, like the Raiders are not good. This team is struggling. It's funny. I was actually thinking about college football because I was looking at the Raiders schedule and they are lucky the NFL is not decided like college football where they have a committee that sits down and goes, well, how good is that win really? Because the
Yeah.
Raiders' one win this year is a 1-point win over the Broncos, which is looking progressively worse as the season goes on. Of like, really, like the Dolphins just beat them by 63. Yeah,
Exactly.
but you only beat them by a point. And
Yep.
so I don't think the Raiders are a very good team. I don't think Josh McDaniels survives this season. They're a shit show. And I know what Raiders fans are going to be yelling at me for of like, well, Jimmy Garoppolo just got cleared for concussion protocol. Congratulations. You just got 5 touchdowns, 6 interception quarterback coming back to lead your team. Best of luck with that. So and if you look at the injury report, I have to imagine this played a role. If you look at the injury report, the Packers look more beat up than they actually are. Aaron Jones is questionable. Christian Watson's questionable. Who was the other? Luke Musgraves is questionable. Like you said with Christian Watson, it's looking like he's good to go. Luke Musgrave was a full participant. It's looking like he's good to go. The biggest question mark is Aaron Jones, but from a Packers reporter, he said that, it doesn't look like Aaron Jones is being slowed down. So I'd be shocked if Aaron Jones missed this game, especially since is it Sunday night or Monday night? It's Monday night.
Monday Night Football. Yeah. Sunday
So
night
he's got
Niners Cowboys, man.
I don't. Yes, hey, it's 2 teams you absolutely despise. Come on, man.
What? We're just talking about this like all episodes. So come on, you got to
assuming I'm listening to you. I'm looking at my notes while you're talking. So I think that, especially with the extra day of rest, that Aaron Jones, this whole Packers offense is gonna be good to go. Look, Jordan Love's good. I'm calling it. He's good. I hate the Packers. It's not fair that you can go from one good quarterback to another good quarterback to another good quarterback. That's just not fair. I don't like it. But anyway, so I think that the Packers upsetting the Raiders is a near lock at this point. As for money line, I'm going to go Homer. I very rarely do this, but the Colts are underdogs, plus 125 at home. The rare home underdog against the Tennessee Titans. I understand why, though. Kwity Paye is out. Shaq Leonard is out. Sorry, I always stumble over that. If it's Darius, Shaq, I always get scared about that. So, yes, no, and Bernard Raymond, our tackle, is also out. The Colts are beat up. They're beat up, so I understand why we're getting this underdog tag. But look, these Colts have played better teams close. And here's the deal. The Titans, even with all these injuries, are not the better team. The Titans team is not that good. And Derrick Henry is struggling. I won't say massively because he has had a couple good flashes and he's still Derrick Henry. So I think this will be a close game, hence why I made my money line. But I do think that Indianapolis will end up winning this game. I have a couple fun stats to share for you, Mer. So the first one is Ryan Tannehill has been sacked 16 times.
Yeah, quite a bit.
3rd most in the NFL. Here's my favorite. I am so happy I found this stat. The Titans have just, like their offense, have just 3 passing touchdowns. That is including the one that Derrick Henry had last week.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah. That is an amazing stat. So bottom line is I think this Indianapolis defense is good enough to kind of, keep Tennessee in check. I think as long, and this is the massive asterisk on this prediction, as long as Anthony Richardson is healthy, I think that the Colts will end up winning a close game. It will be close, but I think they will end up beating the Tennessee Titans for the upset at plus 125.
Interesting. Yeah, I think the Indianapolis Colts could pull the upset there. I very much like that as like a sneaky play if you're making your sports bets this week. And yeah, 100%. Like as soon as I saw that Raiders and Packers line, I was just like, why would anybody pick the Raiders? Like, I mean,
Like
I understand.
like I said, it's every week you hit that where it's just like, what is going on there? And you're like, oh, they're at home. And for some reason, the bookies are just like, oh, they're at home. That must mean they're going to. It's just, it makes zero sense.
Yeah, they're home. Like you brought up, Jimmy Garoppolo is healthy, so he's going to be playing in that game. Maybe that played a factor as well. I know there's all that news about David Bakhtiari for the Green Bay Packers. He's going to need season-ending surgery, so it's like maybe they're like Packers offensive line may not be stable, but Bakhtiari hasn't played all season long. Packers have been fine without it. So it's just like I don't understand. But yeah, I think that's just free money. That's like take that bet. I think, like I said, if you could get that sneaky play with the Colts as well, play the upset, that's a very good chunk of change that you could possibly earn by placing a very small bet as well. You don't have to play anything big there for sure. So yeah, I very much like both of those bets. But to get Tad's additional bet, his player prop bet, and to get all three of my bets,
Which, by the way, I hit my player bet in the first quarter last week.
Yeah, that was insane.
That was great.
Just,
I was so happy when I saw that.
That was just so crazy. That was just insane just to see him just absolutely light up the Cardinals that way. And just like, yeah, it was insane. But yeah, so Tad went 3 for 3 on his bets. I went 2 for 3. I've had a pretty consistent streak here. I've gone 2 for 3 in every single week so far. So I've been pretty good on my bets as well. But guys, the best way you can find out about all those bets, because we drop them in a graphic every single week before the weekend comes along. You see the ticker down below. It's coming at the tail end here, but yeah, you got to see wrong right again.
That's it, man. He's also 4 for 5 on the ticker count. This is his first miss of the season.
It's one off there. So, but yeah, you got us on social media. You got me on Twitter over the side 23. You got Tad and Tad the side 94. You got the show handle at the Decide Guys, and of course on Instagram at the Decide Guys as well. Make sure you interact with us. If you want us to discuss a bet that you are interested in making, you're just a little bit iffy on it, hit us up. We definitely will give you our advice about who we like, whether we like a certain spread, whether we don't like it. Like the situation with the Packers and the Raiders, it's like that's free money. Like take the bet. Like, I mean, we'll give you personalized advice depending on what type of bets you make. 100%. Give us your questions when it comes to fantasy football as well. Hyper personalized for any type of leagues you're in. We've said this so many times before. Me and Tad are in so many leagues this year, and not just so many leagues, but so many different leagues. So, I mean, if you need advice on a very particular type of league, I play in IDP leagues. Tad plays in a Reaper league, like a Guillotine Vampire league. I mean, we're both playing in just your standard 10 and 12
so many leagues. Sorry to interrupt, but so many leagues. Do you want to tell them what happened to me last night?
Yeah. That's very good. That's very good. But
Or do we want to say that till Monday?
We can say that till Monday because we want to see exactly how that's all going to play out.
It's a good story. It's a good story. I'm very nervous.
Yeah, Tad did make a very monumental mistake that I think you could probably put 2 and 2 together based on yesterday's performance. But just we'll see exactly how that plays out in his matchup this week. He's playing against our very good friend Chauncey this week in our LFB football.
Not this weekend. He's not. Not this weekend. He's not.
But guys, if you need advice in your fantasy football leagues, regardless of what type of league you're in, what type of advice you need, whether you need trade advice, whether you need start-sit advice, whether you need waiver wire advice, I mean, just whatever it is, we're here to help you out. Send us your questions through social media. We're here to help you out for sure. We are here to help you win your fantasy football leagues. And I think another way that you can win your fantasy football leagues is make sure you subscribe or listen to your podcast, whether that's on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify. You can listen right on the LFB Network website as well. Ton of options. Just hit that subscribe button. Always be up to date with our podcast. You can catch us on YouTube. Just make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel as well, so you're always up to date with our videos. And I guess please always make sure you're giving us support to our parent network at LFB Network. They're giving you a lot of great content when it comes to the pro level with the Rams and the Chargers, and of course the college level with the Trojans and the Bruins. So I mean, give them a shout, give them some support on their social media handles, their various articles that they're writing at LFB Network website, all their various podcasts. I mean, just show them support, because without them, there would be no us for sure. But the guys everybody who's already supporting us by listening, by watching, by interacting with us, by dropping YouTube comments on our various episodes, I mean, just anything and everything that you're doing, guys, we really just can't thank you enough.
And as always, like Amir said, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. And you know what, guys? I mean, look, I've been contacting a person that has been mentioned plenty of times on the show before, Jason Davis, who has been hitting me up for. And look, this is how in depth we get with fantasy football, where his waiver wire quarterback list is so shallow. He's like, do I go for Andy Dalton? Do I go for Taylor Heineke? That's the type of advice that I'm faced with on an almost daily basis, where I'm like, I don't know. That's very tough advice, because frankly, both those options suck. But
Yeah.
it's just figuring out which one sucks less is
Yeah.
part of the job. It is a job that we love so much. So as always, thank you everyone so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. Please check us out on those socials below. And please, even more and more importantly, stay safe, everyone.